In addition to dream theory, I also want to incorporate two other theories of romantic relationships because I do not think that attachment theory exists in a vacuum. We have self-expansion theory and interdependence theory. Self-expansion theory describes the cognitive overlap in a person's schema of themselves and their schema of their romantic partner, and this can include almost anything. It can include tangible resources, personality, and this is known as inclusion of the other in the self. So to the degree that people feel close with their partners, they will include aspects of their partner in their own self-concept. Interdependence theory makes economic-based predictions of relational outcomes. So accommodating behavior, lying and betrayal, breakups, forgiveness, are all determined by four key variables: satisfaction in the relationship, investments, how much people have put into the relationship, alternatives, what else is out there that might be an alternative to the relationship, and commitment level. I also want to address what we call in my lab the secure base script. And I'm sure a lot of you, having been in this area, are familiar with it. Basically what it is a cognitive blueprint for supportive and nurturing interactions with other people. People who are high in attachment security, people who have had positive relationships and positive experiences in relationships, have access to this mental blueprint that guides their interactions, and it facilitates communication and cooperation, it facilitates distress relief, and it promotes exploration. The key elements of the script, as I said a second ago, supporting exploration. If there's an interruption, if there's distress, or if there's some kind of problem, what secure people will do is reach out to their attachment figures for help and support and comfort. That support is effective. It's, the threat is neutralized and the distress is reduced. And then people can get back on track to resuming the exploration, resuming whatever positive thing they were doing before. And this script itself can manifest as a narrative, and that's actually how we gauge people's attachment security in the lab. We have them tell stories based on word prompt outlines, and the degree to which the stories reflect that sequence of events is how we judge whether people are secure. In this study, what I'm looking for is evidence that the secure base script manifests itself in dream content. So when people dream about their romantic partners, they will form, if they're secure, they will form dreams that naturally reflect this sequence of events. And I'll explain a little bit more what I mean. I'll give some examples in a bit. But in general, here are my basic hypotheses for the study. High attachment security should lead people to form dreams that reflect that. So they're going to experience greater amounts of availability and responsiveness from their romantic partners in their dreams. Basically, they're going to have dreams that we would score high for the presence of the script. And along with interdependence and closeness, because those variables are so intertwined, I'm going to look at the unique contribution for those variables. I'm also looking at how those variables will predict emotions in dreams, both positive and negative, how they'll predict specific relational behaviors in dreams, and I'll get to more of that later when I give some examples of the kinds of dreams people have, as well as dreams of alternatives, or dreams of extradyadic partners. Any questions so far? Okay. Other research questions. Because the previous literature on continuity theory is so mixed, and because there's not really a reliable way in which we can count on continuity, I'm leaving this as an open question, or at least I left it as an open question before I actually did the study and ran the analyses. Whether there are associations between interactions that people have during the day with their romantic partners and their dream content, and whether the inverse is true, whether people's dreams will impact the interactions that they have the following day, as well as possible interactions with the global variables we measure, the attachment, interdependence, and closeness variables that we have at time 1. And we can use multi-level modeling to examine the unique effects of the daily and the global variables, as well as the interactions between the two. So the method is pretty straightforward. At time 1, we recruited a group of individuals who were in dating relationships of at least 6 months. They came to the lab and completed the battery of measures assessing attachment and relationship quality. They also did the secure base script procedure. We then gave them the diary in which they did complete measures of their daily interactions with their partner and their dreams for 2 weeks. And after that, they came back to the lab, turned in the diaries, and we debriefed them. So a bit about the participants. 61 people total, on average between 20 and 21 years old. A few people who were a little bit older, but overall we're looking at people in their early 20s. Most female, and most of them are exclusively dating, a few are cohabitating, and a few are engaged or married. In terms of how long they've been together, I think the mean is a little bit misleading because we measure time in months and there's a huge standard deviation. I think the median is a better indicator of central tendency here. About 15 months, so a little bit over a year, they've been together in their relationship. Measures, just go over them really quickly. Again, as I said, we have the secure base script narrative procedure where we give people the prompt word outlines and they tell stories, and we use those stories to kind of gauge their level of attachment security. We also have the experiences in close relationships questionnaire, which is the widely used self-report for gauging attachment, avoidance, and anxiety. It's important to note that these measures of attachment, the first two that I have here, are orthogonal to each other. There's no correspondence between the self-report of attachment and the secure base script procedure for gauging it. We also have the Rust Bolt interdependence scale, again measuring satisfaction, investments, alternatives, and commitment. And we have the inclusion of the other in the self scale, which I'm sure many of you have seen, our Aaron's overlapping circles measure that gauges closeness. In terms of the diary, at the end of each day, we have participants report on how much general interaction they had with their partner that day, how much effort they put in, and how much contact they had with their partner. We also have them report on how much love they feel for their partner, how much love they feel from their partner, and a daily inclusion of other in the self, a daily measure of closeness. And we also have them report how much conflict they feel that day. And those are all continuous variables. They're all on 1 to 7 scales. When they go to sleep, they have dreams, and here are the instructions we give them for writing down their dreams. Write down any and all dreams you have, regardless of content or perceived meaning. Report as much detail as possible for each dream. What were the events that happened, in what time frame, with whom, etc. We also tell them to record their dreams immediately upon waking up, but we add in a little caveat to that because we don't want to disturb people's sleep. So if they have a dream in the middle of the night, if it's 3 a.m. and they can't wake up fully enough to write it down, we tell them just jot down a few keywords, and that'll help jog your memory. And we've actually gotten some very positive feedback from participants in the study that was actually very helpful for them in terms of remembering their dreams. They woke up and they saw the keywords, and it jogged their memory, and they were able to write down their dreams completely. We got very positive feedback on that. And after they're done recording their dreams, they can record the emotions they felt on 0 to 8 Likert scales. And I'll talk specifically about the emotions we have a little bit later. In total, we collected 842 total dream reports from everyone in our sample. On average, this was just under 14 per person, and a few people had a bunch. A few people were dreaming almost twice every night, and a few people only had a handful of dreams, but on average, they're pretty much dreaming every night. 220 of those dreams contain people's romantic partners. So on average, between 3 and 4 dreams per person. A few of them had no dreams with the romantic, I think there were 7, yes, there were 7 total people who had no dreams with the romantic partner. So for certain of the analyses, we did not include them just because there was no data to include. And just to check, I ran some analyses to test if these people were different from the others in terms of any personality or relationship variables, and there were not. So I'm confident that we're not skewing the sample simply by including the people who dreamt about their partners. And the last thing I have here is that of those 220 dreams that contain the partner, we scored 176 for them for the presence of the script. This is an important distinction because not every dream that contains an attachment figure can be scored. My colleague Adela Abertroy and I came up with what we thought was a good set of criteria for evaluating the presence of the script, and we agreed that in order for it to be scoreable, the partner has to be in the dream. There has to be a significant character in the dream. It can't just be kind of on the side. It has to be interacting in a meaningful way with the dreamer. Here's an example of a dream that's not really scoreable. I was in my human development class. I wasn't sure of the timing. I was taking notes in an extremely small font. People were coming in and out of class. I was sitting near the door. The dream goes on for a while. All of a sudden, at the library, there was chocolate. I ate as much as I could. I was extremely happy. Then the last instance of the dream, my boyfriend was there in the library with a red umbrella. So the boyfriend is kind of an ancillary character here. There's not much we can do with it. I suppose if you're psychoanalytically trained, you can make some comment about the chocolate or the red umbrella, but we can't really do much with it in terms of evaluating for the script. So we just put that aside and move on. Here's an example of a dream where the attachment script is kind of poorly functioning. In my dream, my mom and dad walked into my room, sat on the foot of the bed, one on each side, and they told me my uncle died. His sons, who live in Florida and Puerto Rico, were still on the planes over. They didn't get to see him before he passed away, and they didn't even know yet. My parents left my room together, and I slowly got out of bed and got dressed. I was feeling very sad and confused. I looked to my boyfriend for comforting. I texted him and messaged him online. He simply responded with, "Oh, and sorry." Suddenly I felt very lonely, like I had no one to talk to. I unplugged my computer, turned off my phone, and went to my aunt's with my family. So here we have a situation where the dreamer experiences significant distress. It really doesn't get any nurturance or support from the parents, then turns to the boyfriend and doesn't get anything from him. So this gets scored low on the script scale. Here's a better story. Boyfriend and I wake up and decide to go for a run. I remember thinking that it was particularly foggy, but he said we should be fine because he was going to take me on a different route. We begin to run and I begin to feel refreshed. As we go in further, the scenery begins to change. We pass really strange things, each with a different theme. He was really pumped and excited, and because he didn't seem worried, I stopped worrying and began to have fun. So here we see several elements of a well-functioning, secure-based script. At first, there's no real emergency or significant amount of distress, but there's a little bit of discomfort. The dreamer's worried about the fog, and the boyfriend kind of handles it by saying, you know, we're going to take a different route, so it's going to be okay, we're going to be safe. As a result of that, she is able to experience new and exciting things. She sees differences in the scenery. It's kind of almost, I guess, what you would call a self-expanding activity. Because the partner is there as a supportive figure, she feels comfortable. And in the last part, we have another part of the script where she is actually using information from him to regulate her own emotions. Because she sees his face and she sees his mental state as being, really excited, she stops worrying. So this gets scored higher on the attachment script scale.